So we're gonna graph one right off the start. We're gonna go to 2 pi.
Could you guys? I got it. Thank you.
I'm gonna go by pi over 2. And then I'm gonna go -2 and 2. I'm gonna go by 1s. So I'm gonna go. So my normal window. Okay. All right. So set up your window, and then our function that we are going to do is going to be this one. Yesterday,
Did you go -1 to 1?
I went -2 to 2. Hey, yesterday we learned about what happened when our a value was negative. What happened? What happened with our function when our a value was negative? It flipped. Okay, it flipped over. So if it was supposed to go up, instead it would go down. If it started up and was supposed to go down, it started low and went up. So a total flippage of our function. Well, now today I want to figure out what that -b does. So on your window, and so your x window is 0 to 2 pi. Y's I went -2 to +2. Okay. In that window, I want you to graph sine of -1/2 x. That was my scale was pi over 2. So like these are all pi over 2's in here, but I went all the way out to 2 pi. So I want to go the sine of So what did that do to my function? You're in degrees. Okay. So what happens when my b is negative? Sine should normally go what? Should normally go up, right? Okay. But it's not. It's going down. So if I expanded my window here, if I expanded my window out to 4 pi, I would see a complete wave, right? So it still doubles the length of my period from 2 pi to 4 pi because of the halfness. But the -b also flips it over. Okay? So if I were hand graphing this one, what I would do is, first off, I would start, because I've got a -b, that's going to be a flip that way. My period is going to be 2 pi over the absolute value of -1/2, which becomes 4 pi. So I go all the way out to 4 pi. Half is 2 pi. Half is pi. The other half is 3 pi. And I go all the way up. Oops, I forgot my 0. And I go down to -1. And I go up to +1. All right. So, remember, we're talking here today. We've done so far now y equals a So what does A do? What does A tell me? Amplitude, height of my waves, right? Okay. Distance from the middle up, middle down. Okay. Also, if A is negative, it flips it, right? Okay. What does B tell me? Period. So that's horizontal distance. Okay. And if B is negative, it flips it. Okay. Right? It flips it. Okay. So A and B, negatives flip. One's vertical distance, one's horizontal distance of my wave. Oops, wrong one. That one. Okay. So let's try a couple with them together. I'm not quite sure why those. Oh, that. Okay, I see what happened. I see now what it did. Okay. Again, depending on which school of thought you're in, okay, I'll do, since they're basically the same graphs, I'll do one of them one school of thought graphing, the other one another way. So one school of thought graphing is, okay, let's figure out what the period here is of this function. So that's 2 pi divided by 1/2. Which then becomes 4 pi, right? So I'm going to go I'm going to start at 0, I'm going all the way out to 4 pi. Half, average. 2 pi plus 4 pi is 6 pi, divided by 2 is 3 pi. Okay? That's one school of thought. Then I put my -3 and my +3 on there. Then, lower this down so I see it better. Then I go in and I say, all right, sine starts in the middle, goes up, back to the middle, goes down, back to the middle, draw it in. Oops, I missed. My big old head was in the way. Okay, that's one school of thought. The other school of thought, just so you see it again, is, all right, so I've got a sine curve, so it should go, start in the middle, go up, go down, come back up, but I got a negative a value. So now, with that being a negative a value, I'm going to go start in the middle, down. Oops, I didn't go up high enough. Down. Up like that, right? It's kind of a bad sine curve, but I'll let it slide. So I don't want to redraw it a third time. Ooh, that's even worse. There we go. Okay, so it goes down to -3. It goes up to +3. Period again, same thing. So it goes 0 to 4 pi. Handle? Okay. Try that one. Okay. So I've got a period of 2 pi divided by 2, so that's a period of pi. It's a cosine graph, but I've got a negative a value, so that's going to be, whoa, tap the brakes, I don't want that. Along those lines, probably went a little high, but that's all right. So it's going to go down to negative 2. It's going to go up to positive 2. It's going to go out to pi, which means half of it is pi over 2. Half of that is pi over 4. Half of that is 3 pi over 4. Agree? Love it. Excited. Can't get enough of it. Okay? All right? I think we're good there. Okay? So now, let's talk with transformations now using C values. Okay? So your window should already be locked in at that one, but your y's is negative 2 to positive 2. That's fine. Don't worry about that. But let's graph those two. Graph sine and sine, or sine of x and sine of x minus pi over 4. Okay? So tab, we should be able to just go in here and adjust this one and just say, I just want the sine of x. Oops, I got to change my period. Okay. So there's sine of x, right? And then the other one was the sine of x minus pi over 4. Actually, I can do this. I can just type in pi over 4. So what happened? What happened between our blue, which was our mother function, and our red, which was our transformed function? Shifted which way? It shifted right how much? How much? Of pi over 4. Yep. Okay. So, get rid of the shade here. Okay, so that it's on there. But did anything else change? Did our period change? No. Did our amplitude change? Okay. All right. So the only thing that got shifted was we shifted to the right pi over 4. So, what's going to happen with this one? It's going to shift to the right by pi over 3, right? Okay. Now, remember that when it's inside, in math, whether we're dealing with rational functions or we're dealing with trigonometric functions, in math, if it's inside a set of parentheses, we have to think opposite. Okay? So before you draw your graph, okay, I'm going to tweak it one little bit. Okay? And the tweak that I'm going to do is I am going to, actually I'm just going to move it here. I am going to get rid of my vertical axes. Okay? I'm not going to put the vertical axes in until the end. Okay? Then I'm going to put it in. So, this is a cosine function, correct? It has a positive a value. it has a positive b value. The leading coefficient of the x term is positive. So positive and positive, so it's a normal cosine curve. So a normal cosine curve would start up, come down, and end back up. Correct? Normal cosine, high, middle, low, middle, high. Right? Okay. So, the period here is 2 pi divided by 1, which is 2 pi. Okay? But I can't put my horizontal stuff on here because I've got to think oppositely with this one. Come on now. Come on now. There we go. I want this changing colors here. Thinking oppositely with this one. So this is going to start at pi over 3. So this value here now is pi over 3. Then I've got to go out 2 pi, because that's my period, right? So pi over 3 plus 2 pi is what? Seven pi over 3. Then we've got to do our 3 halves, right? Now, quick and easy way to do your 3 halves. Top plus top. So 1 plus 7 is 8 divided by 2 is okay. Top plus top. 1 plus 4 is 5. 5's not an even number. So this one is going to be 5 pi over 6. Okay? Because it's 5 pi over 2 when I divided it by 2, and then I got to times it yet by a third. So it's 5 pi over 6. So what's this middle one in here then? $11 pi over 6. I have to, because my period was 2 pi, so so this number here is 2 pi plus where I started. Okay? 2 pi is 6 pi over 3, plus another pi over 3 is 7 pi over 3. How do you get my 6s? Because I had to divide. So, okay, so 4 pi over 3 plus 7 pi over 3 is what? 11 pi over 3 divided by 2 is like 11 pi over 3 times 1/2, which is 11 pi over 6. If that top number's even, just divide it by 2. But if it's not, then you got to multiply the denominator by 2. Okay? Now, I can put back in my 0. And then I can also say, now that my 0 is back in, that down here was -1, and up here was +1. Don't put it in that. I didn't put it in pi over 3 though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not. Pi over 3 is not 0. Okay? Let's try another one. First off, let's get rid of our vertical axes. We'll come back to that later on. Okay. On your quiz, or yeah, it's basically a quiz for this section, it's just horizontal lines. Yes. For those of you that didn't hear, it's tentatively scheduled for next Wednesday. Okay. So, thinking oppositely. Where am I going to start? Where? Negative pi over 4. See it expressed? Because we think opposite, because it's plus. So we think opposite, negative pi over 4. Okay? Period is going to be what? So I've got to add 2 pi to negative pi over 4. So it's what? 7 pi over 4. Halfway. Negative 1 plus 7 is 6 pi over 4, right? Divided by 2 is 3 pi over 4. Because it was an even top, I divided it on top. Half and half again. Pi over 4. And 5 pi over 4. Forget to divide by 2. On top. Yeah. Okay. Now I can bring in, so now if I wanted to, I could bring in my vertical axes because it would be halfway between those two. On your paper, you would probably now just draw it right on there. Peak and valley, how high up, how far down? 2's. Sine curve starts where? Sine curve starts in the middle, or 0. Okay, so I'm starting here. Normally I go up, right? But because A is negative, I'm going to go down. Back to the middle. Up. Back to the middle. Questions? I think we have time for one more. What do you think? I think so. I really do. I really do. I really think we have time for one more. Let me get rid of my vertical. Starts at what? starts at negative pi. Where does it end then? Ends at pi. Halfway would be 0. Yeah, so halfway is 0. And then pi over 2 here. And negative pi over 2 there. Yes? Okay. Cosine, or what's my amplitude? 1s. Cosine starts at the top, and I've got a positive b, I've got a positive a, so it's still going to start at the top. Then middle, then low, then middle, then top. Some might say,
What does C represent?
we out. C represents my horizontal shift. So C is my horizontal shift, and I think oppositely with it.
Can you show me the period? Sorry.
The period.
Yeah.
So my B value here is 1.
Just like this book.
So the period would be 2 pi divided by 1,
No, and that.
which is 2 pi.
I don't even know how that
Since I started at negative pi plus 2 pi is positive 1 pi, right?